which moves us to the action agenda. And number 12, action as necessary or appropriate on matters discussed in executive session. Do I have any motions out of executive session? Ms. Snipes.
I'd like to make a motion that we support the district's position on the employee grievance.
Do I have a second? Mr. Scully. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? All opposed? That motion carries 4-2. And do I have any other motions on executive session? Mr. Hogan.
I'd like to make the motion that we approve selected employment items shown in Exhibit B.
Do I have a second? Miss Snipes, did you second?
I did.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That motion carries 6-0. And do we have any more motions out of executive session? Ms. Huddle.
I move that we approve the 2 proposed contracts with Novak Education and School District 5 during the 2023-24 school year, contingent upon the contract changes recommended by our attorney.
Do I have a second? Mr. Hogan. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That motion carries 6-0. And I believe that is all out of executive session. And that would move us to number 13, the second and final reading approval of proposed revision to board policy GCQE, retirement of professional staff, Exhibit E.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we will handle these one at a time since the second and final. We have discussed the changes in terms of the Terry, and Dr. Wicker stands for any questions.
Do I have a motion first? Mr. Hogan.
I'd like to make a motion that the board approves the administration's recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve the second and final reading of proposed new board policy GCQE, retirement of professional staff.
Do I have a second? Mr. Satterfield. All right. And any questions for Dr. Wicker? Or Dr. Wicker, do you want to? Okay. All right. The second and final, we've heard it a couple of times. So, all right. Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion carries 6-0. That moves us to the second and final reading approval of proposed revisions to board policy GDQC, retirement of support staff, Exhibit F. I'll go ahead and ask for a motion. Do I have any? Ms. Huddle. Ms. Huddle.
I move that we approve second and final reading of proposed revisions to board policy GDQC, retirement of support staff.
Exhibit F. Do I have a second? Mr. Hogan. Any discussion or questions for Dr. Wicker? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That motion carries 6-0. That moves us to item 15, approval of textbook adoption, emergency medical services, EMS, Exhibit G.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To go over our emergency medical services textbook, our Chief of Academics, Ms. Tina McCaskill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Board. You have in front of you some information about where our parents, our staff, and our coordinators have gone through the textbook, and we've used the process and all with policy IJJ. This is really our first year of full implementation for this particular program, and we would like to have approval to move forward and get this textbook approved.
Do I have a motion? Mr. Hogan.
I'd like to make a motion the board approves the adoption of the textbook Emergency Medical Services, EMS, shown in Exhibit B.
Do I have a second? Ms. Snipes. Do I have any discussion or questions for Ms. McCaskill? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Ms. McCaskill.
Thank you.
And that moves us to the discussion agenda and an update on construction projects at Irmo High School and Chapin High School. And I saw that Miss Mary Beth made it in the rain, so thank you very much.
We're going to do Irmo first.
Oh, sorry.
That's you.
That's you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we have Mary Beth here. Brown, we just call her Mary Beth. She's been with us long enough from LS3P to go over the Irmo High School East Wing Replacement Project. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. You know, I just think we're lucky the storm passed us by before we left Columbia, so it was all good. So thank y'all for worrying about me, but we're good. We're excited that we've made some progress. We're here just to kind of update you on where we are right now. A couple of things. Okay, Dave said it was kind of tricky. Okay, a couple of things to show you that, you know, we keep showing you this every time we come back, but we are now in construction documents. But the couple of dates that I want you to be very aware of is that we'll be coming back to you and the October 9th board meeting to actually look at the most final CD estimate that we'll be getting at that point to get your approval to move into bidding. And then once we have done the bids, we're anticipating come back November 13th board meeting to get you to approve the construction for contract to get them started on the construction. So just to kind of keep you up with where we're headed, but we're moving quite quickly and wrapping up the drawings as we speak. Just to kind of recap, of course, this is the site plan that you've seen before where the new west wing will be going. Excuse me, east wing, maybe one day. Okay, I don't know why this thing doesn't want to. Yes, oh, thank you. Oh, you have the magic one, not me. So anyway, just to recap some of the floor plans that y'all have seen before, again, at the new main entry with a connector over to the west wing, and of course the administrative area being on this level, as well as some classrooms. And then I wanted to bring you some of the fun interior renderings that we've started to develop to get y'all excited as we are, so is the school and Dr. Ross and everyone involved. This is kind of as if you were way up at the top of this entry lobby looking down. So that's the emblem that will be in the floor as you walk in the entry area. Beautiful new entry tower that folks will be walking into. You can see in the school counseling area, we've got some graphics as well. We're working with the school staff right now in terms of that, as well as a history wall, okay, that's what you were talking about, okay. The history wall, we're working with the principal and folks to get some information, so we're gonna be creating one that has artifacts and other things to give a real tribute to the school's history. This is moving up to the second floor, the feature area being the media center on the second floor there with, again, more classrooms on that level. And here's a nice fun image of the upper area of that what we're calling dispersed dining. So as you know, we're going to be helping to alleviate some of the dining ability for the students to be dining in multiple places. So we'll have some sort of grab and go kinds of foods, and it just has a really great, you can see a lot of the school pride and the school colors, and of course beware of the sting, the wonderful motto that Dr. Ross told us all about. And so really just getting the pride of the school really enhanced in this area. This is, again, very, very early renderings, just showing you media center and some areas that we're going to be adding that pop of the marigold color that's the school color. Then, of course, moving up to the third floor where we have mostly science classrooms and labs. And then to bring you more updated renderings, as you know, it's a refining process, but you've seen the very similar renderings before, but this is just showing you these are directly out of the 3D program that we develop our drawings in to show you that new front entry that we just talked about and how it mirrors the auditorium on the other side. This is more of a zoomed in view of what that beautiful front main entry will look like on St. Andrews Road. Coming around the side, you can see we've got some playful metal panels that will have windows punched in it for some of the administrative areas on the side there, as well as along the back part of that particular area. And then that brings me to where we are with the cost estimate. So the most recent cost estimate we got was in design development, which is exactly what we need to be doing, because right now we're slightly ahead was in design development, but we're very much on par. We've already implemented some cost savings ideas, and we feel very comfortable with meeting y'all's budget when I come back to you next time to talk about going into bids. So we've brought some things out as alternates. We're hoping we'll get a really favorable bidding climate, and when the cost estimate gives us an estimate, it's at the midpoint of where they think bidders will come. So not the highest bidder, not the lowest bidder, but that midpoint bidder. So what we've done is, instead of taking things out of the design, we've put them into alternates so that the hopeful is that they'll come back in. So for instance, sage shale that's going to be over the courtyard area is something we want to put in as an alternate so that we can always add it later, but it'd be great if we can do that. So we're working very diligently with your facility staff and working through all those alternates. So we're very happy of where we are and where we're headed. And again, this is just a summary of we're right on schedule as we have been. And again, Dr. Ross just wanted me to point out when I'm coming back next. Hopefully there won't be storms those days, but anyway, we'll be coming back for those important approvals from you. So I went through that quickly because I know we're trying to get through the board meeting quickly. Does anybody have any questions, or I can go back and show you anything in more detail?
Ms. Huddle.
We didn't put LEED or Green Globe in this contract. Would it have cost more? Would the estimate be higher if we did that? Kind of what would be the advantages or disadvantages of doing that? I know it's probably too late because you guys have gotten them, but I'm just curious.
Well, know that everything that we do, we usually design to Energy Star standards. So any equipment and things that we're putting in there, we're very sustainably focused. But yes, there are some things that would have added cost to the project. I will tell you that doesn't mean we don't look at the most efficient energy systems in terms of mechanical and things like that. So it's certainly already got a lot of that built in. We're just not going for a certification. So there are some things with LEED that do add some extra cost to a project, but so I can't really tell you what the delta would be, particularly because we didn't actually apply for that, but just know that this is a building that has sustainability in mind.
And just to follow up on that, I'm curious, like the HVAC that's planned for this building, is that similar to what we probably have now, or are new things, new ways of doing things coming? I'm just thinking like after COVID and having to be concerned about air quality, is there anything new in that area?
Definitely, because it is a newer building. There are new ASHRAE codes that we have to meet all the time that are very different from the previous construction you've had done in this building. So absolutely, they're much more up to code in terms of where those things need to be. So absolutely, it's a much better air quality. I don't think there's any specific things that were addressed during COVID other than we're going to have a lot of outdoor space, which is something that definitely came out of COVID. We'll have an outdoor art patio. We'll have this outdoor dining area. So I think some of the lessons learned were about creating these outdoor learning areas as the most efficient way to handle any kind of situation like that.
Mr. Satterfield.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. I do like the idea that you have various places for students to gather and just enjoy each other's company and things like that. The media center, of course, I know that's just a drawing. Is there anything, will there be any sort of flexibility there? So let's say that if they, and the reason I ask this is I visited one school and they had sort of an area that could be used as like a coffee shop or place for kids to hang out and read, because that seems to be a real attraction to kids, and it brings them more to the library too.
So yes, sir, I was going to go back to the plan, and I apologize, I can't zoom into this, but I hate that image looked like it was just a bunch of stacks with an entry desk, because it's way much more than that, like you say. There'll be areas for seating, soft seating, and different kind of study ways that they can have. There's a wonderful maker space that's in the back that will allow the students to do 3D printing and some creative things as well. So it definitely is not the media center of the past.
Will it be plumbed? Will there be plumbing and things like that? So if they decided to add something, a place to, again, get cold drinks and hang out in the media center during their breaks or anything? I know it's hard to go back and retrofit those things.
We don't have it in there, but if you look right across, that's where that dispersed dining area is, up on the upper floor. I'm not sure that they'll be allowed to bring drinks inside the media center. I'm not in charge of the rules for the media center, but I do know that there is dispersed dining where Dr. Ross is pointing right there. So there will be access to drinks and things like that. They're planning for vending machines and things like that in very close proximity. So I think the media center, it's got a big, if you'll see that blue area in the very back, I'm sorry, I guess y'all are looking over here. That's kind of a flexible kind of learning labs sort of space in the back there with a demountable partition, I believe, between the two spaces, so it can be divided into two spaces. So there's a lot of great flexibility within the space to do. There can be, one of the thoughts was if you wanted to gather all the teachers in there at some point, you can do that as well. So.
Well, I just think having a lot of, again, I've been involved with schools when we had to go back and try to retrofit, And it's nice when you do have that flexibility, those spaces that you can use for a variety of things, because over the years things change. But Dr. Ross and I were talking about some of the other schools, some of the newer schools that are so inviting, and the kids really will take ownership if their school looks really nice and it's beautiful and it's a place they want to be. So I do like the drawings and the pictures, but I was just curious about I guess the media center was I was asking most about. But I do like the idea that there are other flex spaces for them to hang out and enjoy themselves, their school and themselves.
Yeah, so going back to that image, to imagine, this, if you look to the left there with those windows, that's the media center, and they're looking out into this exciting space of the dispersed dining. So I really think it's going to be a fun and exciting space, but we just haven't been able to create that atmosphere with the kids in it and that sort of thing. But I really think it's going to be that.
Just Mary Beth, just as a clarification, so
Yes,
it
sir.
would be off the screen here, but that's where essentially the serving area is.
Correct. It's off the screen behind us, basically.
Anyone else? Thank you, Miss Mary Beth.
All right, thank
I
you
love
all
how you
so-
wore Irmo colors to
Yes, well,
complement
you
the
know, I tried to
presentation.
do my best.
We appreciate that.
Okay, which one do I do?
Oh,
I'll
sorry.
take the bigger one.
Yes.
Just as a question, we're looking at, and I'll advance it, the groundbreaking, if all goes well, is that January of this year to start construction?
Yes, it would be around, well, end of December, January.
End of December,
It's somewhere,
okay.
but yeah, I think January to kick off the first of the year would be a wonderful goal.
I'm available.
Great. Good.
Thank you very
Bring your
much.
champagne.
All right, and that brings us to the Chapin High School updates. Dr. Ross?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, and our community. As you know, Chapin High School is the only 5A school in our district without a 5A stadium. So we are expanding the stadium, working with Todd Cease and ACON construction on that project. So I'm going to ask to give an update that Mr. Wiseman come forward with Alan Knotts. You may read this, I'm sorry.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Ross, and members of the community. Thank you for allowing me a minute to talk about an exciting project that we're working on. As you can see, this is the architect rendition of what the stadium is going to look like. The 5A seating that's going to go on to mostly to the visitor side and then some to the right underneath the new press box. So just to kind of walk you back through some of the things that we've gone through. October 21, we talked about increasing the seating size from 3,900 to about 6,500 to meet 5A standards. In November of 21, we went back and re-looked at that just because of budget constraints that we had. We had a certain cap that we had to stay in. So again, in October, we talked about adding those things and came back in November of 22 and just looked at what we could still keep in the project, but also make sure that we keep the budget. So we've reduced the number of seating that it will have, but it will still be a 5A school. And please don't write down 5,600. I didn't have a chance to go back and actually count all the seats that were there, but I know it's over 5,500. But what we've done is able to consolidate where the concession stands we're going to be back into the press box area. We still have, fortunately, we still have a room on the second floor that we can use as an area for multi-purpose room that will be available to us as we conclude this project. These are just some of the things that we've had to go through just through the process, working with the town of Chapin, making sure we've met their requirements, making sure we had the right zoning requirements, making sure we had the right sewer permits, and working with the team back in February of this past year. We talked about moving the project along. We were looking at maybe waiting until after the football season, but we were asked to look at that and see if we can go ahead and begin that at the end of the spring sports season. So we met with the OSF and fire marshals and those folks, and we came up with a plan that we can start construction in May of 23. So originally we looked at completing, once we made the change to May, completing in January, but unfortunately due to weather and some unknown utilities, when they built Chapin, I don't think we had all the maps where all the sewers and wires were underneath the old press box. So we had to do some rewire and replumbing, and of course we had some weather delays. But fortunately, right now, we're only behind about 30 days, so we anticipate being completed in February of 2024. So I was up there this week looking at the current visitor side. That's just the current visitor side that we have right now. But as you can see, last week, we started digging the foundations. Fortunately, we had good weather last week. By Monday, we started filling in the gravel. By Tuesday or Thursday morning, we started erecting the columns for the seating. And as of Sunday morning, about noontime, this was the new addition to all the stadium seating. On the visitor side, they have not put up the handrails as of Sunday. The handrails and the stairs they were still working on. I really anticipate, depending on the weather, next couple of days, we might be able to meet that mark by Friday. Just to give you an idea about the contingency, we started the project with a $100,000 contingency. There are some issues that we had to address based on relocating, like I said, some wiring and some plumbing. As you can see, the cost there. One of the biggest things I'm going to talk about is the fire hydrant that we found by the field house that was hooked to what we think was a landscaping irrigation. So after we find a project like that or a problem like that during the construction, we have to go back and make it right. So I'll show you here just a picture. There's the fire hydrant that probably would have gave you amount of water flow the same as your tap. So if the fire guys came up there and hooked into it, we would be having to address a whole nother issue. So we have to run it basically along the visitors infield side, I guess the school board infield side, all the way back over to the school in order to hook it up into the right water system to give it the pressure and the volume that it needs. So that costs us about $32,000, but again, that puts us at our contingency. We're about 50% of our contingency with about 30% of the project gone so far. Most of the big things that scare us as far as digging, those have been passed, so we're in the process now of just building. So we're feeling pretty comfortable about being able to make that mark with our contingency. So there's the new, on the same side of that field house, there's the new fire lane that's going in, so when the fire trucks pull in there, they'll be able to go in there and tap into that fire hydrant accordingly. So that's the press box. We poured the foundation. That was a delay again because of all the wire that we had to change in the plumbing. We had some good weather. We got the slab poured, and we actually began going vertical on that on July 24th. So next step, on Friday the 11th, we're meeting with OSF, Fire Marshal, third-party inspectors, safety team, and of course the Chapin High School team to walk through the process, see what we have, see what we need to do to get into some type of football season, make sure that we're meeting all the requirements for the people that we need to do as far as safety, and we're excited about what we can do, and I'm not going to make you any promises. But I think we're going to make something. I'm trying really hard to be excited, but not to make you a promise. But things are looking pretty good. Pending any questions? That concludes my presentation.
So I have a question. I think that's why you finished just the way that you did. So we do think that we're going to be able to play home games. We think, no promises, with OSF approval on the 11th, that we'll be able to go into the football season playing home games at Chapin?
That's the intent, yes, ma'am. Barring
Okay.
any issues with OSF and some of our egress requirements, which is our biggest concern right now, making sure that on the home side we have the proper egress. That's our biggest concern. We'll be able to do a lot of seating on the visitor side. As you can see, I think that'll be done, and then we have to work through the egress issues.
So if games cannot be played at Chapin, do we have a backup plan?
There's always been a backup plan of we've already scheduled them at Irmo, so that's always available to us. I know the Jamboree was moved up to Fairfield because that was a last minute addition, but we have a plan to go to Irmo High School, but we're really pushing hard to see what we can do in the middle between Chapin and
Lake
as far as
Carolina.
seating. Yes, ma'am.
Understood. Does anyone else have any, Mr. Satterfield?
Yeah, I had one question. I noticed that you added the additional seating behind the stadium seating that was already there. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes, sir.
So you moved the press box back further?
For the baseball field?
No, on
Oh.
the
No,
home
that was,
side.
that was the original plan. That was all part of the road.
And there wasn't a lot of space back there already.
It was moved back, and I don't know, I'm not the engineer, and I don't think we know the drawings that well. I just know that when they built it, they moved it back some, made it a little bit wider, and they allowed them to add I think 5 rows of seating on the home side.
Yeah, that took some real work there because there wasn't a lot of space
There
back
wasn't a lot of
there.
space there.
Yeah.
It's impressive what they could do in that small amount of space. Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
we appreciate your hard work and what you're doing, trying to get them in the stadium. I know that there's a lot of folks that are excited about that prospect, but we're not going to promise anything, right?
No, sir.
Okay.
But it would be nice if it was played. Anybody else have any, All right, thank you very much, Mr. Wiseman. And that moves us to the number 17 on the agenda. And I think, Dr. Ross, did you want to discuss a few of these discussion items at one
ma'am.
time?
Madam Chair, with your permission and the board's condolence, we would like to move 17, 18, 19, and 20 to discuss all as one for discussion. We know when it comes to any votes for approval, we'll break them up, but they're all related. So Ms. McCaskill can bring us the changes for 17, 18, 19, and 20.
So good evening again, Madam Chair, Board, Dr. Ross. So really, a summary of all of it. IKACC is a change for Cognia only. So to go from SACS to Cognia, which is our new accreditation, excuse me, company. IHCA is going to change Cognia, and it's also a clarification that summer school is for credit recovery, not initial credit. UNDAA, virtual SC will be able to count for graduation courses. And then IKG has a couple of small changes. Instead of calling guidance counselors, they're now called school counselors, and so we're updating that terminology. We're updating Cognia, and it allows for dual enrollment courses for the student with principal approval, and it takes a limit away. There was a limit of 4 courses allowed, but that is now being taken away so that actually students can graduate with an associate's degree at the end of high school. So that is a brief summary of all 4 of those.
Do I have any questions? Mr. Hogan?
Yes, ma'am. With the summer school and the credit recovery verbiage, does that, I guess, I should probably know this, but could a student go to summer school to advance and graduate early prior to this?
No.
Okay.
The way that was written, it kind of sounded that way, and at one time, and this has been many years ago, there was some initial credit that was offered in summer school. They can take virtual SC courses during the summer, but that again is really to just try to catch students up when they're already behind in graduation.
Got it. So this change wouldn't prohibit anything that we were doing in the past that we wouldn't do in the future?
That's correct.
Okay.
Ms. Huddle?
I have a similar question, and maybe there's another alternative, but I've known students before who wanted to graduate early and didn't decide in time, and all they needed was that 4th English. So, and it hurts us if they don't graduate. So what would the options be for a student like that?
So right now, policy says they have to have 6 courses to be considered a student. So they would take 6 courses. They could still take their English course, but they could take some enrichment courses, or they could take advantage of the dual enrollment courses so that then they would get the college credit.
I guess what I'm saying is if they're a junior, and let's say they decide after they start their junior year, they want to go ahead and graduate, it's too late to sign. Let's say it's January, just it's too late to add a course, like move a study hall or whatever. Do they have any option at that point to take a summer school? Maybe it's not official summer school, but it's online.
Not that I'm currently aware of. Not that I'm.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how often that happens, but I mean, I would suggest that we just look at it because again, it hurts they may go on and get their GED, but if it's too late, it hurts us on our graduation scores. So
I can
for
certainly
what
look
it
into
might
that.
be an anomaly and not worth it.
I can certainly look into it.
Do I have any other questions? Mr. Satterfield.
No, but I can respond to Ms. Huddle. The principal does have that flexibility. They don't like to talk about it because I did that one time, and with the promise that she would not share that with anybody else, and before the end of the day, I was inundated with requests. But that policy could have changed
I was
since
about to say, we
there.
might want to defer to the
It was a long
the
time ago,
administration
so-
on that policy.
Yes, I think it's
Principals,
up
we
to,
did
it's
not
up to
say
Dr.
that.
Ross.
I would say we look at each case-by-case basis when it comes outside of your normal, our district rule is you take 6 classes, and we're going to be talking about that in the next policy of why. One of the things that we look at in that discretion is this child ready? Do they have a future set for them? What's that path? Some students want to get out of school. And then we want to make sure that child is making the decision that's best for them in the future. So it could involve we have now options like online school, this South Carolina virtual for summer, adult ed, transferring for your diploma program at adult ed. So we have some options. In terms of policy, we do give that discretion for case-by-case situation to the principal.
All right, anyone else? All right, thank you very much. And that brings us to, I don't know if Ms. McCaskill's standing.
Ms. McCaskill?
We're coming to 20. I was like, don't go anywhere. We're going to item 21 on our discussion agenda, which is the discussion of proposed revisions to board policy IKD, which is honor rolls and Exhibit L.
Right, and the purpose for this change, really, to be on the honor roll, a student has to have a 90 in each subject to be for A honor roll and 80 for a B honor roll. But it says in 6 or more subjects. Well, whenever they're in a dual enrollment course, that doesn't show up in PowerSchool. So if a student has 2 courses on site, it's going to show up in PowerSchool as 2 courses. The 4 courses that they may be taking for dual enrollment is not going to show up. So we have had cases where students are not showing up on the honor roll because they're not showing up in 6 courses. And so you'll see that the change that's listed there is to update that and say that 6 blocks is eligible for the honor roll unless enrolled in dual credit courses during that term, just to make sure that students that are dual enrolled can still be on the honor roll. So we would just recommend that you review this and give us any feedback.
Do we have any questions? Thank you, Ms. McCaskill, I appreciate it. And that moves us to item 22 on the agenda. Do I have a motion? Mr. Hogan?
I'd like to make the motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Do I have a second? Second. Ms. Snipes, second. I would just like to say during discussion of this item that I do not believe that we have ever gotten out at 8:05. So I will call for that vote. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Please be safe going home.